sit in front of them. I'll sit in front of them.
And I'll send them an across to you. Over the weekend, that's all right.
Just sitting in front.
You know what would have been really good? I forgot. Justin.
If that works for you, that'd be great.
We might have some
Okay.
because she's doing this.
Oh yeah, I'll be up here as well. I'll get them Saturday as well.
Okay, I'll bring the bank details.
Okay, I'll just do it there and then, if that's all right. Yeah, that works. Brilliant.
And
It's a pity you didn't have a mini HDMI cable.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you.
You could see the Braille on here on your
Oh
screen.
no, it's good.
Oh, okay.
I should have brought the adapter. I never thought about it. Never mind.
So
Does the second camera work? You could point the camera and do a screen
We're working on that.
I look forward to using
All
it.
right, we might get underway. Thank you for coming along to our August presentation night. This came from a article in the broadcast a while ago that Joe sent me about AccessibleGD77, and I suddenly realised, Joe's now in Tasmania. Because I first met Joe in VK5 when I was there visiting, and I went to an Adelaide Hills Amateur Radio Society meeting, and Joe was doing a presentation on accessible amateur radio, I think it was. There was talking power SWR meters, there was all sorts of things. And I then talked to Joe afterwards because we were doing some work with JAWS, which is the screen reader software that Joe has written. And I also now realise that Lee's had some association with JAWS back in the UK as well. So this is really well-known software. So I thought, okay, I'll contact Joe and find out whether he'd be prepared to give us a bit of a talk. And, well, initially it was going to be online via Starlink, which I was actually looking forward to. But Joe and Micah, can I just say Micah, who's Joe's son, sitting up the back, has actually came down. So they came down on one of Harry's buses, and it's down here. So I'll hand over to Joe. So thank you, Joe.
Right. Well, good evening, and thank you for having me. I always like to start my presentations with a little bit of context because it helps put things in perspective of where I am now to where I was. So I was born, well, I had 2% vision, but I had more serious problems than that. I actually was born with major brain damage. I had severe cerebral palsy, and the doctor said I'd never live a normal life, ever. And so I thank God for the opportunities that He's enabled me to have and enabled me to do in my life because of where I came from. So they didn't even know I was blind till I was 2.5 because of all my other issues. So my mum worked tirelessly with me to try and just get me to respond to sounds, to look in it, or to figure out where a sound was coming from, which direction. Because I couldn't even sit up. I couldn't do anything. I could barely keep food down. So it was a very serious beginning. And the doctors didn't think I'd ever do much, certainly going to school. But God had other ideas. And so I give Him thanks and I give Him the glory, because what happened was I did go to school. I was the first totally blind student in South Australia to do Maths 1 and 2 at Year 12 level. I was the first and still the only totally blind student in South Australia to do a Bachelor of Science, majoring in computer science. And it's kind of sad to think that no one else has done that in South Australia. Now, there have been others in other states, but in where I came from in South Australia, it's not heard of. 75% of blind people are out of work. So for me to become a software engineer and to develop the world's leading screen reading software which enables blind people to use computers around the world is a miracle. So, as I said, I was the first totally blind student in South Australia to do Maths 1 and 2 and a university degree in Bachelor of Science. So I began programming when I was about 11. And way back then we used the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64. Anyone remember them?
Oh yes,
Oh, yeah.
that was my first computer.
Wonderful little machines with 3,583 bytes free, I
right.
believe it was.
Yep.
And 38911 for the 64. And I learnt 6502 machine code as one of my first languages. So we did BASIC, but it was more fun to go into Myers and programmatically flip the screen and change run to jog and to hack the firmware of the Commodore 64. So that's kind of my background. I got into amateur radio. Well, first of all, I've always been amazed with radio. You know, to think that you can transmit something across the airwaves has always been a wonder to me. And I started out on the old 27 megahertz CB, and then later on went to UHF CB. And I wrote to Uniden and I said to them, you know, your UHF CB radios, they're not accessible for a blind person. You turn it on and all the beeps are the same. How are you supposed to know when an option's on or off, or where the channels wrap around? Could you do something about it? Could you at least put a low beep at channel 1 and a low beep when a setting is off compared to on? And the guy wrote back to me and said, yeah, I will do that. And he sent me a radio free of charge with the firmware. And that was kind of where I began with accessibility of radio. I did my foundation license in 2015. It was the Adelaide Hills Amateur Radio Club. Actually, I didn't do it with him though. I did it with Paul Hoffman and I can't even remember who it was now.
Who visits down here quite often.
Oh, does he really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, and then I did my standard in 2016, and then in a 3-week vacation in 2017, I crammed the 6-month advanced course in, and I did that with Ron, VK2DQ, and that was fantastic. And then, of course, we found that none of the amateur radios were accessible. Well, Kenwood sort of was. I mean, some of their menus talk, and you can sort of get a frequency readout. And have you ever tried using your radio without in the dark or with your eyes shut? Can you do it? There were a few Chinese handhelds like the Baofengs, which had a few voice prompts, but the accessibility was always half-baked. And so one day I went along to the Adelaide Hills Amateur Radio Society and met Justin, as he mentioned, and I was even more amazed that he'd heard about JAWS, because I've been developing JAWS since about 1996, and that is the screen reader which enables blind people to use computers. And then I came along here tonight, and Lee's also heard of it. So I'm really, really impressed. So anyway, thanks to Micah who brought me down on the bus. By the way, he's opening a restaurant down here in the Northgate shops in early September called Real Tucker. So I hope you'll support that. But a little plug there. Anyway, I appreciate him coming down with me. So, accessibility of radios. If you can't see what's on the screen, and there's no beeps, or even if there are beeps, but the beeps are all the same, and you can't reliably find your place on a radio, like, for instance, when you get to the bottom of the menu, it wraps around, or with channels, the same, you've got Buckleys of doing anything with a radio. So that's where we were for so many years. Half-baked accessibility or no accessibility. Then I heard about this wonderful project called OpenGD77, which was a group of guys, one from Australia, Roger VK3KYY, and a guy from well, there's a few from France and Italy and other places, that reverse engineered a bunch of Chinese radios and released onto the open source GitHub temporarily the source code. And I grabbed it straight away. And at the beginning, the voice prompts were there. It was quite good. It was a little bit better than half-baked, and I really thank him for what he did. But they weren't interested in me contributing to their project. And soon after that, they took it offline. I don't really want to get into the politics of it, but I forked it. I'm thankful for their efforts, but it's turned out a win-win because I've now been able to add more than 50 new features and dozens and dozens and dozens of bug fixes. And not only that, we've made the most accessible radio in the world. Now, I don't know whether any of you have the GD77, but I've brought a few radios along tonight. I've bought the GD77S, which has got no screen and no keyboard, and I'll tell you its story later, because I've now made that have as much a functionality as the ones with screens and keyboards. We have the GD77, which of course was the flagship, the original one that with the had the reverse engineered firmware rewritten, and I've got a DM1801. Now, when I got hold of the radio, I wanted a radio that you didn't need a computer to write a code plug for. So, I'll tell you some of the features that we've added to this, and I'll demonstrate some of them as we go. Well, first of all, this radio, you can add channels, you can edit, you can sort, you can reorder, and you can delete, all from the radio. I'll just turn it on. Now, you can hear that voice rate. Now, if you think that's too slow, I managed to actually make it so that you can change the voice rate on the fly, which was an amazing accomplishment because these are recorded voice prompts, and so what you have to do is you have to basically as the DMR is being decoded into the wave buffer, you have to sample the wave buffer and resample it on the fly. So I'll just change the
channel details,
voice rate.
Contacts, last heard, RSSI, radio information, options, display option, sound options, time of the, phonetic spell, voice rate 1.
So I can change the voice rate.
Voice rate 2, voice rate 3, voice rate 4, voice rate 5, voice rate 6, voice rate 7, voice rate 8, voice rate 9, voice rate 1, 0. Phonetic spell off. Voice rate 1, 0.
Well, the thing is that most blind people would actually have that fast. Because who wants to sit there listening to a really slow voice? And if you listen to JAWS, most people have their JAWS rate really fast. So you can, as I said, you can add channels, which of course you could on the original, but you can also, let me just show you how you can reorder them, because this is really interesting.
User information.
I'll just get out of there.
VFO, hotspot, micro, family channel, FM.
Okay, so you heard that one.
Family channel, FM.
That uses my voice. I'll get to that in a minute. You can actually add custom voice prompts.
Cool.
And they change with the rate as well. So what you can do is, family channel is currently, let me just play the summary.
Priority channel 1, family channel 477.125 megahertz, FM, M, tone 85.4 hertz, 1 watt, zone 1.
So this is actually a CB channel, but I can reorder that. So I'm going to choose reorder.
Quick menu, copy channel to VFO, reorder channels.
So I'm going to reorder. So
Family
now
channel,
I can use my arrows to move that channel up and down.
2, family channel 3, family channel.
I can sort my channels by frequency.
Sort by frequency.
And now they're sorted by frequency. So if, rather than...
Micro hub, FM, family channel, FRMW, FM.
Oh, let's just see what RNW is.
Channel 26, RMW, receive 146.75 megahertz, transmit 146.RIM.
Let's see what this one is.
Channel 27, RIM, receive 438.5 megahertz, transmit 433.5 megahertz, FM. 5 watts, from master, reorder channels, zone 1.
Okay, that one didn't reorder for some reason.
Sort by frequency.
Okay, but you can sort by frequency, you can sort by code plug order,
Sort by all channels.
or you can sort by name.
Sort by name.
Now I'm going to cancel that because I don't really want to reorder my channels.
RIM.
I'll just go back to channel 1.
Channel. Family channel.
So you can reorder, manually. You can sort, as I said, by frequency, by name, by code plug. You can delete channels from the radio. You can add, edit, delete, and sort both DTMF and DMR contacts by name from the radio. The other interesting thing is with the DMR and DTMF, it will remember per channel which talk group you were on. So if you remember the Open GD77, if you go to what's your DMR channel down here?
307.
Which one?
3807.
Oh yeah, but what's the repeater?
Oh, RAD.
RAD. Say, I think it's RCR, isn't it?
Oh, that's the other one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
These two.
say you're talking on talk group 9 on that one, and then you've got a hotspot which is you want to talk on, I don't know, 7399.
Yep.
Then you want to. There's another. So when you go to a hotspot.
Microphone, FM, hotspot, DMR, TG9.
So this is on TG9 at the moment, but if I go.
DMR, TG9.
Oh, that's on T. Oh, let me just change that one.
USA.
So that's on USA. Now if I go down.
Hotspot, DMR, TG9.
I'll go back to the other one.
DMR, USA.
So it remembers the talk group you were on, but it also does it to DTMF. So if you've got an all-star hotspot, let me.
Hotspot, DMR, microphone, FM, blind hams.
So that told you that blind hams was the last DTMF contact that I connected to, and if I somehow got disconnected from it, I can simply press and hold my hash key.
Reverse on.
Oh, hang on, sorry.
Plus. Reverse off. Minus none.
Let me. Sorry, I think it's. And it will redial it for me.
Oh, wow.
So I don't have to remember. So as I said, you can add contacts to DTMF contacts. Also, you can have 60 instead of 32 because I figured out there's actually more room in the RAM in the EEPROM for more channels. You can add, edit. Here. What's the one before that? You can replay the last 5 seconds of DMR. Let me demonstrate that.
Hotspot, DMR, TG9.
So if I turn this one on.
Hotspot, DMR, TG9.
Okay, so if Justin, if you just take that over there for a bit so it doesn't sort of feed back.
Yep.
So this is a test to see how much DMR I can replay. So now, if you bring that one back to me, I will replay the last few seconds of DMR.
DMR I can replay.
Okay, so we'll try that one again, but this is a test. And now I'll replay it.
I can replay. This is a test.
Right, so I can replay. So say you missed the last bit of DMR that you heard. You could maybe someone's call sign. You can replay it. And then I thought, well, since you can replay it, let's add the ability to add custom voice prompts. So you can actually associate a word that the radio doesn't know how to say with a phrase. So I did that. So now we can go into review mode, voice prompt review mode. So we're now going to arrow through our custom prompts.
To road channel equals CB40.
So CB40 is road channel.
Free caravanning channel equals CB18. 4 UHF repeater equals RPTR. 5 status equals SCATUS. 6 disconnect equals star 73. 7 international space station equals SCACE space SCM.
So you can associate a voice prompt with a piece of text in the UI, so you don't have to hear because it's not an actual synthesizer in this radio. What happens is we encode a list of words that are in the UI, and we encode them with the DMR signal for compression, and then we key the words in the UI when we go to display it. We actually play it. So, but now we can add custom prompts. So you can add about 32 on this. Oh no, this is the DM1801. You can add about 99 on this one because you've got double the flash memory. I'll just turn the prompt. Oh, you can edit the voice tag too. Let me just show you that. this is a test.
This is a test.
So now I'm going to go into edit prompt mode, if I can remember how to do it. No, it's not that one. So even I forget how to do it. Hang on, just get out of there. Get out of there.
This is a test.
Prompt edit mode. How do I do it? Goodness me. I have mental block. There we go. Now I'm going to trim the start and end of that prompt.
This is a test.
There we go. We've trimmed it. So now when I play it,
This is a test.
it's gotten rid of the gap at the beginning and the end, and now I can associate that with a word if I want to in the UI. I'll just cancel that at the moment.
Excuse me, what's UI?
Oh, sorry, user interface. So basically anything that you see in the menus. So you can add, edit, and trim voice tags from the radio. As I said, you can associate a custom voice prompt with a piece of text. You can auto trim. You can manual trim the silence. You've got on-the-fly voice rate. I already showed you that, so you can adjust the voice rate on the fly. You can adjust the relative voice volume, so that the voice volume is quite loud compared to the signal. You can adjust that. 3 levels of verbosity. So some blind people like lots of information. Some blind people like little information. So as a beginner, you can set the amount of verbosity of the voice prompt. So for instance, let me just try that. Let me do it on the other one. That one's not set up exactly the same.
Prompt 9, voice mode 2.
So I'm going to set it to voice mode 3.
Prompt 9, voice mode 3. Channel hotspot mode VMR context KG9.
So now when I press the summary key, you'll hear a lot more information.
Channel 3 hotspot 434.2 MHz mode VMR context KG9 time slot 1 power code 1 power 50 milliwatts zone 1.
So it tells you everything, the color code, the time slot, the zone, everything. But at voice prompt level 2, it gets rid of some of the descriptive words because you know what they are. So
prompt 9, voice mode 3.
I'll go back to
Prompt 9,
voice.
Voice mode 2. Hotspot VMR.
So now when I do the summary,
Channel 3 hotspot 434.2 MHz VMR context KG9 time slot 1 power code 1 50 milliwatts zone 1.
okay, so I think there were some words that were left out, but there's still quite a lot of description there, but it depends on...
Microphone, FM, line hands.
Let's see.
Family channel, FM. Family channel, FM.
Okay, never mind. But you can repeat the last thing that the radio said, of course.
Family channel, FM.
So family channel, FM. Full channel and VFO summary readout. So I showed you that. You can hold down the SK1. You can hear everything: frequency, tone, how many watts or milliwatts, the zone that you're in, whether you're reordering channels, whether you're doing a dual or priority scan. So the OpenGD77 doesn't have that, but this one, AccessibleGD77, you can actually watch 2 channels, or you can watch a priority channel and another channel. The difference is that the priority channel you set up through the menus, and you can just hit priority channel scan, and it will remember the channel you want to scan. The other thing is phonetic spell. So someone wrote to me who was hard of hearing as well as blind, and they said, can you add a phonetic spell option?
Menu, user information.
So let me show you that.
Credit, auto zone, channel contacts, master, RF radio option, display option, sound options, voice rate 1, phonetic spell off, phonetic spell on, hotspot, VMR 9.
So now when I go to
Romeo, Alpha, FM.
Romeo Alpha Alpha FM, so instead of RAA, so I'll just turn that
Menu,
off.
sound options, phonetic spell on, off, RAA, FM.
So the other thing, I rewrote the editor on it completely so that everywhere you have an editor, it's a consistent proper editor. You can arrow left and right, you can insert and delete characters, etc. Before, different screens had different editing experiences, and it was really quite inconsistent. Someone else wrote to me and said with dexterity issues, and they asked me if I could add a function latch. So the function key is the second key down on the side, And so now
Battery 9%.
I've made the latch so you don't have to hold it and press the second key, because there are people who have problems with their hands, so they don't have to press two keys. They can press and release that one, and then press the second key to get the second function. So I added that. I showed you the replay of the last DMR, but also you can now do something really interesting, and that is when a signal comes in on a DMR channel, you can associate that with the contact. So say, let me just see if I've got it on this one. I might and I might not, because it might have been reset. Let me just go.
Menu, sound options. User, firmware credits, auto zone, channel, contact, last heard, contact, BTMF contact, DMR contact list, all.
Amateur Australia,
Line hams,
Europe,
JOEL,
Malaysia.
MS.
So let me just change it to.
Group 4, private 4, JOEVK3AEC, VK7HXT.
No, I don't have it anymore. I've reset it a few times. But basically what happens is you're talking to someone, they say their call sign, you press a button, it grabs it, associates it with their contact, you can then edit the audio, and then as you arrow through your contacts, you can hear their voice in case you forgot who sounds like what. And that's really, really neat, because so often you just can't remember people. You talk to that many. So you can associate, and I did have yours, Harry, on there, but unfortunately I reset it. Audio DMR announcement, a bit like the Kenwood D74, where if you turn the voice prompts on there and someone comes in, it will tell you the call sign of that person. You can do the same on this one. I added a caller and callee menu to the last heard menu. You've got DTMF dialing latch. So on a lot of radios, you can press the PTT. Let me just.
Contacts, DMR contact list, menu, contacts,
Better go onto a hotspot frequency. So normally when you dial DTMF tones with the GD77, you'd have to hold the PTT and dial, which is a real pain. So what I do is I've made it so you press the PTT, start dialing, and then you can keep dialing, and then once you've stopped, then it releases the latch. So that's another feature for people with hand problems. And I also added the ability to add a pause in there. And what it does is, so if you've got an all-star node and you need to disconnect and connect to a node, you can put a P in the DTMF contact. And what it will do is, after it's dialed the first thing, it'll wait, and it will wait until the carrier drops and then continue. So that it's not just a pause, it actually waits for the carrier to drop. As I said, you can have up to 60 DTMF contacts. You can adjust the DTMF volume and rate from the radio now. Another interesting feature I added was a CTCSS and DCS tail management. You know when you, let me see if I can demonstrate it.
Road channel, family channel, family channel.
I'll just go to family channel because it's on there. Let me just see if that one's...
Family channel.
Okay, so if I... okay, forget the feedback, but when I let go of the transmit button, you'll hear it. It's just a nice clean, you don't hear the ksh.
Yeah.
Because, so what I do is, when you let go of the PTT, it stops transmitting the tone, but keeps transmitting for about 300 milliseconds so that it gives the receiver time to realize that there is no tone anymore, and it cuts out the speaker before you hear the ksh. So, because what's the point of having CTCSS and DCS if you still hear the tail? And a lot of radios, you still do hear the tail. Dual watch and priority watch. So I've got priority watch on. I've got a priority channel set on this radio, which is my.
Family channel.
So I'm going to start a priority channel scan.
Reorder, delete from priority channel scan.
So now if I leave that on priority channel scan, if I press the summary key, you'll hear
Priority channel scan. Family channel. Family channel.
Oh, okay. I need to arrow away from it.
Micro hub. FM. Blind
Okay.
hams.
So now I'm on blind hams. Let me just see if it'll.
Priority channel scan. Micro hub. Family channel.
Yeah. So micro hub and family channel. So it's for scanning 2 channels now. So if I transmit on, there's the family channel,
Micro hub. FM. Blind hams.
and now it might take a little while to register because sometimes. Hang on. Is it going to do it? Oh, there we go. So that's because there's a 10-second delay for it to continue scanning. So nice feedback. Auto repeater. The original GD77 software didn't have that, so you can set that in options.
Menu. Contact. Last up radio options. Options. Bandwidth B. C. UHF repeat. VHF repeater offset. 600 kilohertz. UHF repeater offset. 5000 kilohertz.
So you can set the offset, and then
Menu. Options. Micro hub. FM. Blind.
when you're on a channel which has a an off, when you let me go to
Hotspot. VMR. RRJG.
RAA.
FM plus. Minus. Not.
So and you can toggle the offset. So just by pressing the hash key. So you just set that up in the menus, and then from VFO or whatever you can easily do that. The reverse repeater feature. Actually, Roger just copied me with this recently. You can now press the hash key,
Reverse on.
and it keeps the reverse on, or you can
Reverse off.
turn the reverse off, so you can listen on a repeater input. Oh yeah, here's another one. When you're scanning and you stop scanning, if you stop scanning with the red key, it'll actually return to your original channel rather than leaving you on some random channel. But if you stop with the green key, it'll leave you where you stopped. We've got a busy channel lockout, so it'll stop people transmitting over each other. Let me see if I can get that working. I don't know whether I've... Let's have a look.
Menu. Zone. Chat. Contact. Last RSS. Radio options. Option B. C. M. On. B. C. M. On. Micro hub. FM. Blind hams.
So on that... let's have a look.
R. J. R. M. Hotspot. Micro hub. Family chat. Road channel. Fam. Micro hub. Hotspot. V. R. A. Hotspot. Micro hub.
Oh, there it is. So now, if I try and transmit, it won't let me. So the temperature repeat, the announcement is in both Celsius and Fahrenheit for the Americans. Roger didn't want to, he left that at Celsius. Oh, here's another one. I've got a feature called Auto Zones, and I'll show you that.
Menu. Options. Radio information. RSSR. Last channel zone. Auto zone.
So if I go into Auto Zone,
Auto zone. M. R. M.
I can now enable or disable a bunch of channelized zones that you don't have to bother programming. So we've got Marine,
UHFCB.
got UHFCB, that's on,
GMR.
GMRS, FRS, MURS, NOAA, PMR 446, US Rail. Okay, so basically you can enable or disable them and they obey the band plan. So for instance with UHFCB, okay, it's already enabled. So let me just go to the zone. So with the GD77 you can switch zones with your function key and up and down arrows. So I think you've got a repeater on channel 5. Yep. So I'll just go back to my other zone. Yeah. Now the thing is, people, for the purists who say, well, you're not supposed to do that, you can lock the radio on that zone so that when you power it off and power it on, you're locked to that zone. So if you want to give your children, you want to just go out and use a CB and you don't want to use amateur radio, you can lock it to that zone, and it's not programmable. So it's completely obeys the law in terms of band plan and all that. You can enter all the boot screen stuff from the radio, so you really don't need a computer anymore. I mean, you can certainly do it with the computer write your code plug, but you really don't need to anymore. You can do everything from the radio. There's an audio signal level meter, but it only works for DMR.
Menu. Auto channel D contact master RSSI. RSSI S9.
So S9, that's not good. Let me see what's on that channel. Okay, let me just try the DMR. Can I go there? Hang on, I just go to a DMR channel and then I'll go in there.
RSSI S9.
Oh, that's interesting. Must be a lot of.
Hotspot DMR TG9.
How do I do it?
This is a test.
Hang on, it's repeating.
We're transmitting on DATV, Joe, on 77s.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
there's a lot of noise on
Oh, I see.
77s.
Okay. But what you can do is the RSSI screen normally is totally inaccessible to a blind person, but what you can do is you can get audio feedback, so it will rise in pitch the stronger the signal is, but it only works for DMR signals because FM, we couldn't do it for some reason. Now, let me get to the exciting one, this radio. What do you do with that? No screen, no keyboard. Now, this is another one of those half-baked things where a sighted person decided what blind people want. They don't need a screen, they don't need a keyboard, they don't need to make the radio programmable. Just do it from the computer and give them a radio with 16 channels. Thanks a lot, mate. So what we did was we added a virtual keypad. You listen to this.
Channel mode, channel, keypad mode, VFO, A2.
So we are now in...
9.15 MHz.
This has got a full VFO. So now what I can do is I can use the channel knob
3, 2,
to choose a character and add it to a buffer. And then, so let me just choose a frequency. I'll just clear the buffer. Give me a frequency. Is it 146.7? You've got a repeater, haven't you?
1,
Yeah.
1,
1, 2, 3, 5, 4,
4,
6,
6.7,
5, 7, 7,
and I'll add that. And
146.7 MHz.
so now I'm tuned to 146.7 megahertz. Let me just quickly see if that's going to work for me. What am I going to do? VFO.
RSSI, hotspot, VFO, A.
146.7.
VFO, A.
But this might be on. Let me just see what mode it's on.
4, VFO, A. 146.7 MHz. Mode FM, contacts, line hands, tone 77.0 Hertz.
Oh, oh, okay. It's got a tone. Let me just add a tone.
141.3.
Yeah. How can I do that? Or maybe just clear the tone. It's easier. So
C, hash, D,
C,
C,
clear the tone.
C, S, S, not.
Okay. Let me see what I'm doing here.
C, VFO, A. 146.7 MHz. Mode.
Oh yeah, there we go. I'm transmitting. There you go. So that was before a completely inaccessible radio in terms of field programming.
Yeah.
You can do everything that you can do on that with my virtual keypad. I'll just get out of there. So yeah, I mean you can you can add custom prompts with that and everything as well. You can also access the full 80 channels, even though this has got a fixed 16 knob channel knob. You can use your SK2 button to go to a different channel bank. So,
And Joe, we've just got a comment from Ollie. That's nuts. He can tune with the knob quicker than most on the keypad.
oh dear.
Sad but true.
I love it.
We've got an auto dial for the GD77S. So I have a friend who's got dexterity issues, and when he goes to his hotspot channel, the first time he turns it on and he presses the PTT, he wants it to auto dial, so you can set that up. And there's lots and lots and lots of other bug fixes and features. Now, I don't have the satellite mode in it. I do have the source code for it. I don't have the time to merge it. It would take me a good 3 months full time to merge it. And eventually I will. The problem is that whenever they make changes, they rewrite lots of stuff, so it's not just a matter of pulling in the new stuff. And I don't know whether he deliberately does it or not, but it does make it very difficult. For the first couple of years, I was merging in all their changes as well as our changes every time he released, but I stopped doing it when the satellite stuff came out. When I get the source code for the MD9600, what I'll do then is I'll bring all my features into that code base. But it's quite a huge effort. There's a lot of hours that go into to development that end up in no features, just experimentation. That's part of the hobby.
So Joe, how much time do you estimate you've spent?
I better not answer that.
Oh.
But it's the thing is because I work for an American company for JAWS, I tend to stay up late for meetings, and so I do a lot of programming late at night, but thousands of hours. I mean, just heaps.
Yeah.
But there are hundreds and hundreds of blind amateur radio operators around the world who now have a fully 100% accessible radio. Now, some of these radios are no longer available on the market, new. Well, I've ported all the voice prompt stuff to OpenRTX, which is another project, and I must say that team are far more willing to have me contribute, which is really, really exciting. I was just in contact with Nicolo Izzo from Italy a couple of days ago, and they're probably a few hours away from basically putting the voice prompts on the MD380, MD390, UV380, UV390, the Alens HD1, and coming down the pipeline are a few Yaesu radios. But I can't say much more about that yet. There's a lot of reverse engineering to go on to get that done. But OpenRTX is a much more generic solution where we write a common code base and just write wrappers for the individual radios, whereas AccessibleGD77 was really, I mean, with all due respect, it was just hacked together for the radios that it works for. So, any questions?
Yes, what do the manufacturers think of what you've done to the little baby?
Well, you know what? I think they're really happy because they're making sales. I wrote to Radioddity, for instance, because what we had to do was the DMR codec is a code blob that we have to merge into our firmware because the DMR is copyright and we don't want to get sued. So we can't just we can't just include it in the firmware. So what we have to do is we merge that piece of the code with our firmware as you upload the firmware. And we wrote to Radioddity and we said, can we distribute the SGL file with the DMR code block in it? And they said yes. So we said thanks. So they know what we're doing, but they're making sales. And they're, I talked to Roger about this when all the kerfuffle came up a couple of years back about copyright and stuff. And I said, look, you're not going to get sued. You're selling radios for them. And while you're selling radios for them, they're happy. But as I said, I'm in it more for the fact that we can make radios 100% accessible. And I'm on a list with at least 160 blind amateurs, and I don't know whether Vaughan made it tonight. Did he make it?
I don't think he did.
He didn't make it tonight, but he's probably watching. So, and if not, he will.
Cool.
But yeah, any other questions?
The process, an outline of the process of extracting that code and then the reverse engineering, because I think you said that's somebody else is doing that.
Somebody else is doing that, because what you have to do is you have to put in special instruments on the PCB of the radio, the circuit board. You have to operate the radio, and then you have to see what's going on. What values are being sent to what registers on which bus to turn on the amplifier or to turn on the transmitter. We've got other people doing that low-level stuff, and we sort of take over at the point. And this is the great thing about it. We all specialise in the area that we specialise in. I'm a feature adder, and I think one of the reasons that Roger and that didn't really want me on the team is I was adding them way too fast. But that's okay. So once they've done the low-level stuff, Oh, by the way, the RD5R is also supported, and we're trying to get the FM broadcast chip to work on that.
Cool.
I've got some guy who actually helped with the original port working on that at the moment.
We've got a question, how quick is your Morse?
Oh.
My Morse is not very fast. I think I can only do, I don't know, I don't know, 5 or 10 words a minute. I'm not that fast with Morse at all. Which is why we did voice prompts and not Morse feedback, which would have been a lot easier. In fact, we did do Morse feedback on the U-Bit X6, but the processor on that was an Arduino-based processor. It was just way too slow, and it just fell over every time you wanted to get feedback from it, so we abandoned it.
Question. The GD77 seems to be, rumour has it, it's slowly going out of production, because it's no longer been available for a while. So if they brought out a successor, for example, how much work is involved, or how much work would be involved in porting the code across?
Too much.
Okay.
People like Roger and Kai and others like that have spent a lot more time than I have just doing the reverse engineering.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to radios that are still in production, like the UV380, etc.
Thank you.
Obviously, once you've installed the code plug, the radio set up for all these functions, are you then able to use a layman's computer to do the
Oh, yes.
operations
Yes.
that you want to do?
Yes,
Not
so
all of us can operate the fingers as fast as you can.
yeah, so basically there are three ways of communicating with this radio. One is in firmware upload mode, which is what you have to do when you initially put the firmware on there. But then the other mode was 2 ways. Is non-firmware upload mode, where you can either, upload voice prompts or the code plug. And of course, you don't need any of the fancy software for doing that. You can just, in fact, I've written, my friend and I reverse engineered the CPS software, so that we could add like the 60 DTMF contacts and things like that. So inside my archive of AccessibleGD77, we've also got our own CPS software. It's pretty much the same as Roger's, except that, as I said, it supports the DTMF contacts having a P in it, their pause for without crashing the CPS, and a few other bug fixes and stuff like that. He never wanted to release his CPS source code, so we were forced to do that.
Now, it's not radio related, but I'm fascinated by watching you use your Braille transceiver.
Yeah, okay. You want to have a look at this? So this is a Polaris Android-based note taker.
Okay.
So I have, being a preacher, I have my Bibles on there, my hymn books, my notes. I have my presentation notes. I have quite a lot of amateur radio stuff on here, but not the source code because there's no compiler on it. But I don't know whether you can see the dots moving up and down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see it? You're going to come up and feel it later if you want.
And so your notes, you were going back to that, and your notes are on there that you can refer to.
Yes. Yeah.
The other thing, Joe, is you to write code.
Yes.
You're using a computer, I assume.
Yes, it's funny because I use the program that I write to write the program. So I use JAWS for programming JAWS. And when it doesn't, and when it crashes and doesn't talk, then my children come to the rescue. And I think Micah's probably read the screen to me a few times, a few zeros and funny symbols. And but I program in C and C++, and as I said, I've been a programmer for since I was 11. So that's 40 years.
Cool. Any other questions for Joe? No? Can we show our appreciation?
Well, thank you. And anyone, elderly, if you know anyone who's elderly who's losing their sight, make sure that they know that there are accessible solutions out there, because they can keep on using their amateur radio.
Sure.
And you'll all be in that position one day too.
Some of us closer than others, to be honest. There you go. I'm not 21 like you.
And a thank you from Andrew Elwell down in Signal. Really enjoyed the talk.
Oh, great.
We peaked on about 12 on the stream, so it was good. It's good.
So what's your next project?
Well, I'm still working on OpenRTX, and then I think there's two things I'd like to do. One is an accessible digital scanner, SDR scanner.
Oh wow.
I think every blind person that I've spoken to is so desperate for a digital scanner that's accessible. And the other one, of course, is an HF rig with full accessibility. And HF Signals has just put out their successor to the UBIT X, which is now based on a Raspberry Pi, and that runs Linux, so that is going to be quite easy to add accessibility to, we hope. Famous last words, of course.
Do you have any idea how many people globally are using your applications?
JAWS
or JAWS and
JAWS is used by the majority of blind people in the world because there is no there's no commercial competitor anymore. And in terms of these radios, well, I know I'm on two lists. One's got at least 160 members and the other one's got several hundred members. So I don't sort of know how many are using it, but I think there's quite a few. And there's a lot of sighted people that use it too, that I get feedback from. So.
You said there was two in the room that know about JAWS. I know about JAWS too, so that's three.
Really?
I've installed that at work.
Really?
Yep.
Sorry, who am I speaking to?
Hayden.
Oh, Hayden.
SMHH.
Oh,
I've installed
great.
it at the University of Tasmania on, I think there's 2 or 3 blind people.
Wow.
So, yeah, they use it quite a bit.
So you're seeing an increasing number of manufacturers coming to you to say, what should we put in our radios?
I wish. I've written and added 100 blind signatures to several letters to the manufacturers, and we get these nice responses, but nothing usually. So I mean, with the screen reader, I mean, it's been really exciting to literally define what a screen reader is over the years, and to add all the features that. Does anyone know what a screen? I mean, obviously you three do, but maybe I can just briefly explain what a screen reader does.
Okay.
So a screen reader is a piece of software which runs in the background in the operating system, which hooks into the operating system and monitors what's being written to the screen and builds a model of what's being written to the screen and knows what to speak. And we can do really clever things like enable blind people to use spreadsheets where even when the headers, the Excel, the column headers aren't even visible on the screen, we can read them, or the row totals and column totals, and we can tell all the formatting for a Word document, and on a web page you can use quick keys to move around a page, like H to move to headings and T for tables and things like that. So we virtualize the web page and make it into a readable and navigable document. So we basically enable blind people to use a computer, and not just use a computer. There's a difference between accessibility and usability. Microsoft love to make things accessible, but they're usually not usable. Whereas we aim to make it accessible and usable. That is, to make the blind person as efficient or close to as efficient as a sighted person in their work.
You just reminded me, I've seen one guy at work using Excel, using JAWS, and he can use it better than people that can actually see what they're doing with the columns. Like, I'm amazed actually at how easy he used it and how well he was using it.
We were the first screen reader to do that. In fact, I was just talking to someone the other day. They paid me a pittance way back in 1997 to do that, and it's amazing where it's come from now.
What we found interesting was that only all customer software. It was the UK government in my revenue tax office. It didn't even blink. It just handled customer software like it natively. It didn't need to be rewritten. It didn't need to be changed to handle that customer software. It just handled it without a problem. So it's
I mean, screen reading is really, really, really complicated, and firmware is just simple compared to screen reading.
I think that my thinking is now that it was probably because it was based on just a spreadsheet style interface. It was probably recognising it as such and just reading it. But there's never any major issue with JAWS at all. They did say we had one version that was a bit buggy, and then
Oh, there's bugs in all software.
but everything else was never a problem.
Speaking of JAWS and UTAS and that, have you seen a number of schools take on the software as well, by chance?
Oh yeah, I mean most schools use JAWS, most government departments use JAWS, most universities use JAWS. There is a competitor, and I will give them a plug because they've done an amazing job. Also Australian. They've written an open source screen reader called NVDA, and they're our only competitor.
Wow.
And that was also written by a couple of Australian guys, so I'm pretty impressed.
That's good.
Fantastic. All right. Certainly come up and have a closer look. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for Micah coming down as well.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Thanks
I
for
was
making
talking
the
about me
trip.
being older than other people because I was looking at him while I said it. I did when you said it.
I'm just going to go behind you, guys.
It's funny because I'm moving
They're really interesting, Joe. The software. Is it easy to put on?
Oh yeah, it's easy to put